What is Spider-Man supposed to do if his roommate is dating a villain? This is the Comicstorian channel, where I take some of your favorite trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then I read them dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. Today we're going to be continuing our coverage of Amazing Spider-Man. Today is issues 63 to 65, and when we last left off, Spider-Man got a brand new suit that allowed him to work for the Bugle by filming everything he does and making a little money on the side. On top of that, his roommate Randy is currently dating Janice, aka the Beetle, who turns out to be the daughter of Tombstone. So yeah, his roommate's dating a villain. That can't end wrong at all, can it? If you enjoyed the video, please consider hitting subscribe, smash that like button, and let me know in the comments down below your favorite part. Now let's get into Amazing Spider-Man. Night has fallen over the Ravencroft Institute. Norman Osborn pacing outside of his son's cell. There was something of a breakthrough the other day. With Normie, I mean. Norman explains to his son, and he tells him that he showed the boy an old picture of Norman and Harry, from when they seemed almost happy. Do you remember this day? He asks, holding up the photo. Kindred tilts his head slightly, his eyes glowing as he regards Norman. Of course not, Norman says in frustration and sadness, sliding to the floor, telling his son that he would give anything to have him back to the way he was before. You must believe me, son, he says, choked with sadness. Wilson Fisk regards the crying former villain as he watches the Ravencroft security feeds. He regards Osborn as a fool who believes that he truly runs Ravencroft. This is your demon? The one you call Kindred? Baron Mordo asks, and Fisk nods as he looks up, explaining to the sorcerer that he requires his expertise. The Hells are a big place, Kingpin. You may not know all of its denizens, but lucky for you, I know how to make them bleed. He tells Fisk, and as Fisk leans over the desk, he explains that he doesn't need Kindred to bleed, just to talk. He tells Mordo that he'll give him the Tablet of Death and Entropy if he can convince Kindred to give Fisk what he wants. And Baron Mordo looks at the demon on the screens. Very well. I do love a challenge. I must warn you, though. Things could get very ugly, he says. Meanwhile, in the city, as Spider-Man and Boomerang leap amongst the Hammerhead goons, webbing and boomeranging them while they move to avoid blows and bullets. Fred, up here! Spider-Man shouts as he takes a punch to the jaw. Boomerang knocks another of the goons' guns away as he leaps ahead. I see it! Don't worry, Spidey, I'm on it! Go, Gadget, boots! He shouts as his rocket boots begin to take him above the fray. Myers rockets around for a brief moment before grabbing a piece of the tablet. Got it! Let's blow this He begins to shout to Spider-Man, but an explosion rocks the fight, throwing Fred away. When the smoke clears, the Owl is standing there with his own army of goons. The game's afoot, gentlemen! He shouts to his goons, and the two crews of mobsters rush forward, quickly beginning to battle against each other. Meanwhile, at their apartment, Tombstone is stumbling down from the rooftop after seeing his daughter kissing Randy Robinson. No. It can't be! He mumbles to himself. His thugs are confused as to what is happening to their boss. Over at the Daily Bugle, Robbie Robinson tells his assistant to make sure that no one sees the photos. He ignores her questions as he pulls on his coat, heading for the door. The Owl, meanwhile, is moving in to grab Boomerang as Spider-Man fights Hammerhead. At last, Boomerang will be mine! Owl shouts with joy, and Hammerhead turns from punching Spider-Man in the face. Get your weird bullet hands off him, Owlsy! He shouts as he leaps at the villain. Well, that's a lucky break, Spider-Man comments as he pulls Fred to his feet, and the two warring group of mobsters begin to shoot at each other, with Spider-Man shouting for Fred to run. Using the power of his new suit, he begins to rush towards the crowd. The suit makes him faster, stronger, and quicker with his webs, and in a matter of moments, the entire battle has ended with everyone gunked up. And as Spider-Man swings away, he is quickly surrounded by his adoring fans, with Jonah shouting out that stick around because Spider-Man will be giving off an AMA. Spider-Man pauses. Do you know what an AMA is? And Jonah smiles. Nope! Meanwhile, Robbie is banging on Randy's apartment, the boy confused as he lets his father storm in. Robbie quickly gets to the point, pulling out a photo of his son and the villain known as the Beetle. And Randy is rather upset that his father was spying on him. Robbie tries to let him know that he wasn't spying, because the lady that he is seeing is a criminal that they are investigating. They argue back and forth for a moment that she is trying to change, but Robbie tells him that it is Tombstone's daughter. The man has made Robbie's life a living hell for 20 years. Meanwhile, over at Tombstone's residence, The second-floor office explodes, the Tombstone raising his desk over his head, screaming at his daughter that she will not date Robinson. She blasts the desk out of his hand as she pulls on her mask. "You're lucky that I didn't set these to vaporize," she screams as she leaves. Now with Randy arguing with his father about who he's dating, he decides to try and talk to Peter about it, explain what is going on, except Peter tells him Spider-Man already told him. Spider-Man kinds of sees things when he crawls by windows. Peter uses as an explanation to avoid giving away his identity. Meanwhile, Beetle is sitting with her own friends, where she tries to explain what is going on. After speaking to their friends, the end result is that Beetle and Randy just need to have a talk about how their fathers feel about this. So, a short time later, Robbie sits up in his bed. "Wow, great talk," he tells Janice as she lays next to him. "See, who cares what our fathers think?" she tells him with a smile, leaning in and kissing him. "All that matters is us." And with that, they cuddle in bed and Randy tells her about his father storming into the apartment. "I told him that you were reforming," he continued, and anger flashes across her face as she suddenly sits up. "What? That's not what I said!" She snaps, getting out of bed, quickly packing up her things, grumbling angrily. "I can't believe this! My dad was right! You're never going to change!" Randy snaps as she begins to tie up her hair, preparing to leave. They continue to argue until Randy finally stops her. "You know, maybe we should." But at that moment, a voice interrupts him from the door. "Freeze and come along quietly?" Crime Master asks as the rest of his goons begin to walk into the room. "Nah, you were gonna say something else," Crime Master continues. Janice quickly throws Randy down as she leaps into combat with the heavily armed thugs. She twists, throwing Crime Master against a wall, but suddenly she gets cracked in the back of the head. "This one is not to be trifled with," Madame Mask notes as Janice falls to the floor. Rubbing her head, Janice looks up at the supervillain when suddenly a big smile crosses her face and she begins to gush like an excited fangirl. As she begins to babble, Madame Mask kicks her across the face, knocking her out. "I may be getting soft in my age, girl, but not that soft." And as Crime Master stands up, he orders his goons to grab the two of them. "Randy, you decent man, you got a story to tell," Fred shouts as he and Peter enter the room, seeing both Randy and Janice getting kidnapped. They both stop at the sight before them. "It's him!" Madame Mask hisses. "It's them!" Fred shouts, pointing at the criminals. "It's not what it looks like!" Randy shouts as he struggles out of bed, and the goons open fire as Peter Parker's apartment explodes. Meanwhile, back over at Ravencroft Institution, speak. The magical words echo throughout the halls of Ravencroft as Norman runs towards Kindred's cell. He crashes through the door just as a painful roar is ripped magically from the demon's mouth as Mordo stands over him, Kingpin watching from the nearby. "Fisk, what the devil are you doing here?" "Getting results, Director Osborn. Sorry about all the noise." Fisk responds, not even bothering to turn around, and the two begin to argue with Norman yelling that they had a deal and that Kindred is his patient. "Doesn't seem to be doing very well under your care, Norman. As you can hear, Baron Mordo has made quite the breakthrough," Fisk says as he glances over his shoulder, another roar of pain escaping Kindred's mouth. "We had a deal, if you heard him!" Norman snaps at Fisk, but the mayor merely smiles. "It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when." Meanwhile, across town, Tombstone stands in the destroyed apartment of Fred, Randy, and Peter, cradling his head, muttering his sadness as he finds his daughter's weapons. "Tombstone, I knew you were behind this!" Randy shouts as he steps into the rubble, crossing the destruction, grabbing the monster by the jacket. "Where's my son?" he shouts at him. Tombstone pushes the reporter away, pointing out that his daughter was taken as well, and as they begin to argue, a voice interrupts them and wraps them in webs. "Okay, enough!" Spider-Man shouts, jumping in. "If anyone's going to blame themselves for this, it'll be me, fellas. It's kind of my thing." Spider-Man begins to talk down both Robbie and Tombstone, telling them that they can't waste any time, and if they put their heads together, they'll save the day. You see, it was hours ago that Crime Master's goons opened fire on Peter and Fred as they walked through the door. Peter ducked back quickly, dragging Fred with him. "No, Pete, wait, I can take him, I'll protect!" Fred tried to tell him, but Peter slammed his head into the banister, knocking him unconscious. Now alone, he uses the unstable molecules in his new suit to quickly change. Crime Master and his goons storm the stairwell, but they find nothing. "Which way did he go?" Crime Master demands. "You mean the previous tenants? Looks like they bolted. You fellas here for an open house too?" Spider-Man jokes as he leaps in from above, now completely changed from Peter Parker to Spider-Man. They opened fire, but Spidey quickly leaped and avoided them, his spider sense going off as he turns in time for the Crime Master to pistol whip him. The blow barely hurts as Spider-Man immediately turns, pummeling the would-be mobster. Suddenly, a blast of energy slams into him, launching him into the wall. The energy wraps around him, pulling him to the ground and trapping him. "Let's go," Madame Mask orders as she steps into the hall. "I'd love to, but I appear to be stuck!" Spider-Man grunts from the floor. Crime Master lifted up his pistol and aimed it at Spider-Man's head. "Only for the time being," he says, but Madame Mask stops him, informing him that killing Spider-Man would only complicate things. And so Spider-Man watched as they took Randy and Janice away. The group of villains escaped and they blew up the apartment behind them with Spidey still stuck in the hallway. He pushed his new suit to the limits, straining the power and flexing. The energy net snaps and he quickly leaps through the destroyed apartment. But as he reached the fire escape, he sees the Crime Master vehicle disappearing into the distance. After Spidey tells the two dads the story, Tombstone grunts. "Yeah, Crime Master and Madame Mask, huh?" Robbie chimes in. "Mob business." But Tombstone quickly whirls at him in anger. "Now hold on, I barely know those idiots!" He snarls at him, but looking at the photos that Spidey took, Robbie believes he knows a contact that might be able to tell them where the villainous pair are hiding out. Spider-Man nods and he swings away. "Great, I don't need to hear another word for legal reasons. You two go see Robbie's contact and see what you can find out. I'm gonna go get some backup." And with that, he swings into the glowing light of the city. As the two kidnapped hostages wake up, Janice and Randy begin to try and figure out what exactly is going on. And while Janice thought that she was going to make an alliance with Madame Mask turned to her shouting for her to shut up, because she has to be the most maddening and irritating hostage that Madame Mask has ever taken. Randy also informs them that they're out of the loop on Peter and Fred's whole tablet scavenger hunt thing. But Madame Mask informs them again, "We don't care about the mask." The two villains begin to circle them, explaining that they have no interest in Kingpin's prize, merely the chaos that his competition causes. When Tombstone arrives to save his daughter, they'll kill him and take over his sections of the city. Once the newspaper's owner is taken out, they'll replace him with someone more understanding. And while the overall plan seems rather intelligent to take over Tombstone's space, Janice and Randy inform them that there's a slight problem. Their dads have no idea where they are. Madame Mask and Crime Master look at each other and then look back at them. "I'm sure they can figure it out if they put their heads together," Crime Master tells him. And Randy looks at them in surprise. "You guys didn't do any homework on this kidnapping, did you?" Meanwhile, Robbie is trying to get information from his informant, Mirage. The low-tier villain kind of refuses to give up the information as to the location of Madame Mask. But since Tombstone's also there, he kind of incentivizes Mirage to give up the information as Tombstone dangles him over the edge of a building. "Okay, alright, let's talk!" he screams, quickly telling them that Crime Master and Madame Mask have set up shop and have been promising everyone big tech and superpowers. "They gave me a card!" he shouts, suddenly pausing in his panic. "Oh, but it didn't fall out of my pocket," he whispers to himself. Meanwhile, Spidey lands on a building where he left the unconscious Fred, but the man is gone and Spidey finds a note for Peter Parker. He scans through it quickly, reading how Fred doesn't want to get any more of the people that he cares about hurt. He tells Peter that he'll finish this himself. "Oh no, Fred, what are you thinking?" Spider-Man whispers into the night. Meanwhile, back at Ravencroft, Kindred keeps screaming as Baron Mordo works his magic. Norman and Fisk watch with the mayor smiling evilly. "Music to my ears. Isn't it, Director?" Wilson asks, but Norman's eyes only begin to widen as Kindred turns to him in pain. "Father, please!" he gasps, and Norman quickly whirls on Fisk. "Enough!" he bellows. Fisk is shocked by the outburst, but Norman explains that if they continue, the Goblin might come out. Fisk doesn't want anything to be ruined when he's so close to getting what he wants. So Fisk regards Norman for a moment before finally sighing, waving his hand. Mordo, relent. The magical energy ceases and Kindred falls to the floor of his cell. And as they walk out of the room, Fisk turns to the director. "One day, Norman. That's all I'll give. The crucial hour draws near, and once it is past, there will be no need for contingencies, and that demon will be sent back to hell by conventional means." Once he's alone, Norman rushes towards the cell, calling his son's name. "I could hear you, but they couldn't," he whispers to the demon. "You heard, yes, but did you listen? I've asked you to help for my entire life. What did I receive in return, Norman? And why would I believe that this time would be any different?" Kindred tells his father. Meanwhile, at the docks with Tombstone and Robbie, they quickly slip into the warehouse that Crime Master has been using as a base. I texted my contact. He says Spidey's on his way. Robbie whispers to Tombstone as they lean around a corner, but the mobster shakes his head. I ain't waiting, but you can't go in there with just a press pass, Tombstone tells him, offering him his gun. Robbie shakes his head, telling him that he isn't a killer like Tombstone and his daughter. Now you watch your mouth! I didn't want Janice to be involved in any of this. I wanted her to be a lawyer. Not that she would have listened to me. Tombstone snaps quietly, and Robbie laughs gently as he remembers his own conversations with his son. Man, being a dad is the worst, right? Tombstone whispers as they continue into the warehouse. Except when it's the best. Robbie replies, sneaking into the darkness, when suddenly the lights snap on and the mirage lifts, revealing that the pair are surrounded by armed thugs with Janice and Randy tied up nearby. Boom, jerks! You just got miraged! Mirage calls out to them with glee from his place at Crime Master's side. The goons open fire, and Tombstone and Robbie quickly leap behind some of the boxes for cover. But Tombstone sees his daughter trying to rush to her. Gentlemen, please, I'm going to have to ask you to die a bit more quickly. Madame Mask calls out as Tombstone has a knife stabbed into his shoulder. Yeah, we're on a schedule, Crime Master adds, and Robbie steps out telling them that Spider-Man is already on his way. Do I look worried? Madame Mask asks, holding up her phone and gun. He'll never arrive in time, and if you're wondering how I know that, I made sure to track his location using this very handy Threats and Menaces Find Your Superhero app. Plenty of time to dispose of 4 bodies, she tells them, but as the goons surround them, Tombstone just smiles. Gonna be more than 4. Robinson ain't the only one who called in backup. The wall suddenly explodes inward, and a group of costumed supervillains thunder their way in. The Syndicate! Everyone screams. In moments, the group of villainesses have launched into combat with the Crime Master goons, energy and destruction filling the entire large warehouse. As Tombstone and Robbie rush to the fight, they begin to untie their kids. Believe it or not, Robinson and I talked it over on the way here. If you two love each other, who are we to stand in the way? Tombstone tells his daughter, and the kids look at each other in shock as Tombstone leans over to Robbie. You really think reverse psychology is gonna work? Fingers crossed, Robbie answers. Suddenly, Spider-Man flies through one of the windows, joining the fight. Ladies, do you mind if I join in on the rescue? He asks as he leaps into the fray. I can't believe we have to work with him again. Electro snaps as she shoots out a blast of electricity. This time it's gonna be all over the internet. Comments are gonna be brutal, she adds. Spider-Man twists and avoids a shot as he slams the head of a goon into the ground. Hey, I get it. It isn't good for the brand. But as someone who's struggled with that for years, take it from me, the public changes their mind all the time. You just gotta focus on doing your job and give me a good show, he tells her. And as he flips through the air, grabbing White Rabbit and pulling her free of the blast, Spider-Man and the Syndicate continue to fight around the room, taking out the heavy amount of guards. Meanwhile, Janice turns to see Madame Mask bearing down on her. I suppose it's just you and me, Beetle, Mask snarls, but Janice avoids the woman's first blow. I came to you as a peer, as an ally, and this is how you treat me? I guess what they say is true. Never meet your heroes. Or villains? Who cares? Janice snaps as she twists out of the way and hits the woman with a blast from her gauntlet. This is for not accepting my LinkedIn request, she snaps, energy crackling across the room, slamming into Madame Mask. Meanwhile, Robbie and Randy are watching the fight. Starting to get what you see in her, Robbie whispers to his son. And Crime Master begins to take down Spider-Man, punching him hard in the face, but the new suit protects him, and Spidey avoids another blow. Flipping through the air, he kicks Crime Master hard in the face. A short time later, outside, Janice and Randy hold each other closely, kissing as others stand nearby. Tombstone grumbles, trying to get over it, and finally the two turn to everyone standing nearby, from the Syndicate to their fathers to Spider-Man. They announce, "We're moving in together!" They cheer, and everyone's eyes widen with shock. Meanwhile, back at Ravencroft Institute, Norman chases off another one of the night guards, opening up the door to the quiet cell. Darkness fills the room, and a voice speaks from the shadows. Osborn, what do you want? The voice asks, and Norman smiles. The same thing that you do, dear patient. The chance to help yourself and your neighbor, he says. Meanwhile, at MJ's apartment, Peter sits there with his note, unable to think of a way to find Fred. It's okay. They'll figure it out, Mary Jane tells him. But Peter shakes his head. All I have is his note and a really slobbery boomerang, he says as he motions to Gog, who sits nearby playing with Fred's boomerang. He really loves that boomerang. Guess anything that's got Fred's scent on it, Mary Jane says with a nod. Suddenly it hits Peter, and he goes to Gog with the note. The animal sniffs it, and a short time later, Spider-Man keeps the creature on a web leash as it leads him through the city. Elsewhere, Bullseye watches Boomerang through his scope. Target acquired, Mr. Mayor. Now for God's sake, can I finally kill him? And that concludes issue 65 of Amazing Spider-Man, which brings us one step closer to concluding this storyline. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, as every week we're bringing you more Amazing Spider-Man so that you too can follow what is going on with this storyline. Don't forget to smash that like button, hit that subscription if you enjoyed this telling of this story, and don't forget to join us over at Patreon, where you can get a vote on the videos that are coming to the channel. You get to say what is happening over here. Thank you so much for your guys' continued support, and I will see you next time right here.